they ban out this Queen of Pain and they force their opponents to ask the question, are we comfortable playing versus Batrider? In game one, Team were very comfortable playing versus the Batrider, and that was something that I think they were lacking in their second draft. It's that awareness of, while you know what Hokori can pick, you know that you can almost move past that pick. It's the mind games that go on during the draft where you really are able to tell with this ban what Hokori are going to go for, and then you just make yourself as comfortable as possible with what you think your opponents are going to end up playing. I think, okay, banding out a little bit here, and this is, again, that awareness. If you think that they're going to go for the Batrider, then picking up this Abaddon is a really good solution, but it's not the biggest pick here. We're still waiting for something, I think, from Sammy Boy specifically that's going to make him feel very comfortable going late versus this RDO gyrocopter. It's a tall task, and there aren't many heroes that are able to do it, but I think that's going to be the main objective for Team here. If Sammy Boy is unable to get that advantage in the core matchup, I think we are going to see a very quick Hokori lineup just start to blitzkrieg through their opponents again, and that's what I'm really worried about for them. Okay.
Hokori
It's
getting their
started.
hands on it. The Timber Saw gets picked up. That's the first time we have seen that hero today, and honestly, not really even because it was being banned out all that frequently. It's just not too many teams in this matchup or the previous one were giving it too much consideration, but you've got it now in the hands of Vitali, and the Earthshaker coming out as well, presumably for El Misho. So you're starting to get maybe a little bit of a mix here. You've got damage, you've got some lockdown between the supports and the gyrocopter, and yeah, there's an ABBA on the other side, but Mike, who has to be playing that ABBA because it's Team and they picked an ABBA, so Mike will play it, but he can only save one hero with this shield.
Yeah, and you know that awareness that I just brought up? It's now Hokori saying that, do you want to pick a hero like the Storm Spirit for Ryoya? And okay, I like this change up a lot from Team. I like that they get the hero that's going to counter out and then play very well versus your lineup and then slot it into your own. And of course, Batrider slots well into pretty much any lineup unless you're playing versus a Monkey King or you're playing versus someone else. It does feel like this is a good slot. I think they picked the Earthshaker on Hokori's side to, again, play around those mind games a little bit. You ban out the Queen of Pain, so the next obvious candidate is going to be that Last Striker Storm Spirit for Ryoya, and you definitely dissuade that lineup. But this Batrider is going to slot very nicely for them. The only problem is, again, you need a little bit more physical damage. Now, you do have the Beastmaster, which is going to shore up your problems a little bit, but who's going to die once you lasso them? You need to get another combo hero, I think, coming from your allies, and I think that's where Hokori, perfect ban on the Morphling. It was the hero that I honestly thought Team were going to go for there, but again, that's where the Earthshaker really dissuades them a lot. Of course, they ban it out even after taking up the Earthshaker, but it's the hesitancy. It's the fact that you kind of don't want to do that to yourselves. And same with the Weaver ban. Hokori are on the money with their bans. Now they just need to find analog on one of his more comfort pick heroes. And then I think they've got a really solid lineup. I think Team are definitely more even to their opponents this time around, though. I think the big struggle is going to get Sammy Boy on one of those heroes that, again, plays well into the gyrocopter. But if they can find something like that, I think it's going to be, honestly, the closest game out of the three we've seen.
Those are very nice bans. What you're hoping for Team with the Roar and the Lasso is a hero that has the damage and the mobility. To sort of get in there, you don't necessarily have to drag those targets over to Sammy. He could come to you in relatively fast time, and the Morph and the Weaver both would have accomplished that. Now, there are still maybe some options that give you a little bit of that, but not to the same extent. So you're not going to have that sort of instant joining of the fight by your carry unless Sammy's already sort of maneuvered into the area before the initiation goes down. And if you do that and it works, great. He's in position. You find the fight. If you do that and you don't, now Sammy has sort of moved halfway in between the farm and a fight that didn't happen, and you're starting to maybe get a little inefficient with your time. So,
okay. Another Slark. Okay. I mean, it's interesting, but this is a mid Slark. Very clear. Analog, he's going to be able to lane versus it. And of course, you're playing versus very single target disables. I think Snapfire does play pretty nicely into the Slark, but plays fantastically versus both the Beastmaster and the Batrider. And don't play Sniper. It is the Monkey King. Okay, perfect.
All right, that'll work. There's that hero that sort of gives you, again, that mobility and damage that they were looking for. So Monkey comes in, and Team, I mean, this lineup looks
Thanks,
just
guys.
so
Thanks a
much
lot.
better
Thanks,
than what
guys.
they had tried to
Thanks a
put
lot.
together in Game 2. Still no guarantees that it works out for them, but they appear to have drafted themselves into a much better position this time around.
Yep, everything looks a lot more stable. I think, again, Monkey King is the other hero, right up there with Tiny and Gyrocopter, where teams are starting to value it so heavily, especially the big rotation style type Dota that a lot of these teams are really getting up to speed with, as well as you're picking it when you already have the Beastmasters. So the lack of natural push that your hero doesn't really provide is now going to be shored up a lot by the summons coming in from Brax. I think the big thing right now for Team is how much focus can you actually put onto RDO. If you can put a lot of pressure onto this gyrocopter, it will become that situation where if RDO is an item behind the Monkey King, it is going to feel very difficult for him to fight. And again, it's the team fight. If Sammy Boy can get a ring on these cores, Hokori have to back off. They crumble away. They have to really rely on everyone else. And something that's really playing against Hokori is that all of their lockdown is more or less set up on El Micho here. I think it's very difficult to actually look for those grip plays whenever you do have this Bane on your side. And as good as this Bane is, it's not going to feel as guaranteed. I think that pressure will fall at the hands or fall at the feet rather of the Earthshaker. And whether or not El Micho has a good game here is going to be incredibly important for them, especially out of the lanes.
Who
Yeah,
wants
they
cookies?
need,
Well, too bad.
well,
Who wants cookies?
not a
Well,
heroic
too
performance
bad.
by any means, at least not from what we're looking at so far, but they need him to be consistent uh, with that with that play, as we do have a DC Vitali continuing to have some issues here with his connection. So DC'd a couple of times in the previous 2 games. The issues continue, but last time around, or last couple times around, he's been able to get back in, and while these DCs have happened multiple times, it hasn't really been all that frequent, right? So hopefully we can just get him back in and get things back underway. But I'm very interested on that Hokori side to see what Analog really does with this Slark after the previous game where Sammy Boy's Slark was just never really given an opportunity to do much of anything. It's a little bit hard to have much faith in the hero at the moment, but we will see what he does mid going up against that Bat Rider. You will have the Dark Pact to try and play around with to stave off aggression from Ryoya, but I want to know, like, how much farm will he find? What is the item build for him as well? Is he just going to go straight in for straight damage? Do we see a little bit more focus on some sort of defensive item for him, or where will he look to take things?
Yeah, and we'll have to see if he does play that same build-up as we saw Mr. Jeans do earlier, or if he goes for some of the less greedy items that I think that Mr. Jeans was able to get. But that's also where if they do get shut out of their lanes in very similar fashion to Team last time around, you will have this more farm-oriented offlaner who's going to occupy that safe space. It's something that they need to be careful about. If they do get shut into their own base, they've got 3 hard farmers on their core position. So anyone starts falling behind, it's going to feel like there isn't that recovery option. You know, you really are stuck with your lanes. You have to succeed, and then you can look for the space afterwards. It's something that I think Team are definitely a little bit more balanced around. They definitely have some more traditional roles on their side.
Yeah, they're going to be able to sort of fall back and get maybe not everything that they want, but at least enough to sort of subsist on and keep on pushing forward. Whereas Hokori, well, may not be quite as straightforward. They really do need to put that emphasis early on maybe not winning these lanes. Obviously, that would be fantastic, but just draw, don't get pushed out, don't have RDO have to sort of be jungling too early, because then you're butting up on analog space. Vitali's not going to be able to sort of rotate over and supplement his farm either, so just keep yourself there for as long as you can. Just don't give up any opportunities to farm early.
Yeah, and I think that's where in that D2 Hustlers game where we saw the mid Slark, the key player there was Yuma on the Monkey King, who was playing less of a traditional hard farmer and was definitely making those early rotations where I don't think we're going to see that same playstyle come out from RDO. And it just, again, puts more emphasis on the lanes, what you're able to get off from the beginning of the game, and you're not really able to play around that same early start. And okay, already bullet off the at least 3 of the runes, so little lead there for Team.
Look at this, Vitali He hadn't skilled up anything. He goes for the Timber Chain now, but Sammy was able to get the Jingu off on that Timber Saw to hit that little bit harder. So your Timber, he's got to pop maybe an early Tango or two, but once he gets the points up in the reactive, he should be okay, but this is still going to be two melee heroes against a Monkey King, and Sammy is, I assume, going to be okay unless Elmisho really catches him by surprise. If a Fissure gets put in the right spot and Vitaly can just sort of hack away at him with this nuke damage, maybe there's a play to be made there, but that is assuming Sammy is going to kind of get caught out of position, and it's assuming Elmisho's able to make the wraparound like he tries for here, but that one's going to kind of split between Sammy and Mike.
Yeah, and now you got to be careful. Unfortunately, for Elmisho, you ended up going for that actual fight in the bottom rune area, so you didn't get to go for the double block off, and that's where Vitaly, it's pretty funny because you can still get very aggressive on the Monkey King just because, and Elmisho did steal the creep wave, but as we've seen so many carry players do, you kind of just walk each other's waves behind the tower, and then, oh, what a fissure from Elmisho. Can he cut? Okay, he can cut through.
All right.
Almost perfect from him.
Timing was good from Elmisho, but that little bit better from Sammy to actually make that still meet up. So that would have been a little bit rough. If that creep wave just walks past, then, well...
You have to take it under tower then.
Yeah.
You just have to go for it.
And things get very, very awkward, and your Timber Saw is going to be allowed to sort of grab another wave's worth of experience without much immediate harassment. But now, Vitaly, he's hit level 2. He hasn't actually skilled up anything. Never mind. There's going to be the reactive. So I thought maybe for a moment he was thinking, do I want an early point in the Whirling Death? But no. Not willing to sacrifice his durability. And this kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier on for Hokori in particular. Don't get too greedy. Don't take too many chances. You need every last scrap of farm out of these lanes. So go for the more sort of stable reactive armor play, and you're not going to be able to really stop Sammy, but you can still find plenty for yourself.
Yeah, and that's where Elmisho is also doing a really good job just giving this Timbersaw as much soul XP as possible, trying to be obnoxious, stopping Mike's pull, doing everything he really needs to on this Shaker. And then you can make the swap off where, oh, and even gets a nice little kill on Sammy Boy's Courier there as well. But give everything to Vitaly till he's level 6, then you can start looking at those rotations where you get to focus on your own game a little bit, because that blink time is still incredibly important. But with all of Elmisho's hard work here, there's no large camp to pull, and there's no Abaddon to go for the small. So this is going to be a lot of free XP for Vitaly. Very well played.
Is just reaping the fruits of his support's labor here, as is tradition. But yeah, Elmisho's doing a pretty damn good job of this, and you continue to see him just sort of working his way around. Mike, he has a ward, so maybe he could do a little bit of blockage here in the jungle himself, as he is eyeing that up, but as of right now, not really going for it. You're just kind of hanging out in between, and as of right now, I'm not really sure what his play is. He is spending a lot of time. There we go. He will throw the sentry down to block off the Ancients.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. Of course, you're playing versus the Gyrocopter, so you don't want to allow him to solely stack one of those camps. It's where Elmisho does need to pick and choose a little bit. You can only stack one when you're on those melee 4s, and it's taking a little bit of damage, but yeah, top.
Lane, Flea gets taken down. Garrick and RDO able to finish that kill, and this duo, I mean, there's a reason why these two heroes, not always together, but often are sort of valued up, because individually they're dangerous. Together it's kind of rough. You get the Nightmare that sets up for the homing missile basically for free, and Hokori draw first blood. Flea at this point in the game, I mean, if you get hit by it, there's really nothing he can do to get out of it. But now Ryoya makes his way over. Gardic did spot out that stack though, so he's aware that it's in there, but I don't think he's getting away, yeah, with his life. So he will die to scout out these stacked camps, but he sees it, and Hokori, maybe not immediately, but eventually they may make a priority of maybe shifting over, getting RDO in there to steal some of that away if they can create the space for it.
Yeah, it's going to be a big rotation, and one that I think Analog will really be the first one to blow the whistle. Of course, with nighttime vision, it's so easy for Analog to really assess and pick out the fights he does choose to go to, but that's also where he is just very easily doing what he can, getting as much farm as possible, and definitely being obnoxious to Ryoya. And Elmisho is here as well. Supports are still kind of just collapsing everywhere, but now that it's nighttime, I really don't think that Analog can die. He's about to be level 6 as well, so he's got all that HP regen to play with.
Yeah, once he has that, this lane becomes, yeah, quite a bit easier for him to survive in as he goes for the pounce. I think that was just a flyover to maybe try and scout out a ward or something to that effect. He does have some sentries that he's purchased that should be coming out to him, so see what he can do with that. In the meantime, though, the bat actually sort of stepped out of the lane for a little bit, so IX Mike will step in to try and soak some experience, but now there's really only one reason why Ryoya would be stepping away. It would be to try and go for these stacked camps. So Hokori making their way over, gonna try to contest it. They do not want to let Ryoya have this. It's so much gold that could really just absolutely skyrocket his net worth and get him to those boots of travel in a much faster time. So both sides sort of shuffling heroes over here. We haven't seen the gyro move in, but now Mike blocked off there by the fissure flea. Honestly, that cookie play would have been nice if Mike had still been sort of facing in the direction to get over it, but he's actually still going to make it out, while Ryoya, he's going for the stack. Analog's able to take away maybe 1 or 2 of those last hits, but he's got to be careful. The haste rune is great, but it doesn't really make him invincible by any means. Gardic, though, okay, Gardic just went straight in to try and finish that kill, but Mike's a little bit too durable, and that is not what Hokori wanted. That's a lot of resources that they bring over to try and prevent those stacks from being taken, and Analog got maybe 1 or 2 of those last hits. Ryoya gets the rest, and they end up losing one of their supports as well.
Yeah, that is a pretty massive loss for them. Not only do they fail at contesting the stack, they know about the vision placed there, but they just get collapsed on by the Beastmaster. And early levels, Team plays so much better. You need the level 6 on the Bane. You need a little bit more from El Micho as well. He's finally going to be able to take over the mid lane a little bit away from Analog, but that's where you're not going to feel that impact until Vitaly really makes his own burst out onto the map, because everything has been put onto this Timbersaw as it rightfully should be, but I don't think you can afford to contest that stack while giving all those levels over to Vitaly. I think Vitaly is the man himself who should probably be looking for those engagements, but instead he's valuing his own space and his own farm, which he's not really getting versus Sammy. The problem is you give all these Jingu stacks over to the Monkey King, and then he immediately looks for denies. You don't always look for those easy last hits, and I think that's where Vitaly is definitely getting worked a little bit, but RDO is here.
They brought all the cores over. They want this kill. The homing missile's coming in. Good boundless there initially, but he still needs help. Mike is coming in, dropping the aphotic shield. Sammy healing up with the Jingu, but it's not enough. Hokori, I mean, they bring the heavy firepower, but they do find the kill. Sammy gets taken down, and, well, do they stick around? Because they know now that the Abaddon is here. Mike's under the tower, though, and he's probably not going to reveal himself, so yeah, you see Analog shifting away, and Vitaly TP's up top to try and defend that tower from Brax's push. So, good rotation, not going to stick around much longer afterwards.
Yep, in very similar fashion to the Tidehunter we've seen all day, this Timbersaw will be able to fill those shoes very easily. He does need to be careful, though, especially if Vitaly stacks Fade here. He could definitely get roared into a kill, but he's very cautious. He knows what's going to happen here, and Sammy's going to push for it.
Still going to try. Meanwhile, the bat gets hit up by the Nightmare, so he's not immediately joining, but they've still got the lockdown. The roar comes in, and yeah, those stacks reset, and well, the Timber doesn't have the durability to survive that one. He'll be taken down, but now that means Mike is going to be left to really fend for himself over in the bottom lane, and they should be able to bring him down. RDO gets the kill with the call down, but that's fine. If you're team, you sacrifice your position 5 support to get a kill onto the opposing offlaner, and more damage onto a tower that they then clear out. So the trade will go their way, although Analog and RDO are going to be trading this out for a tier 1 of their own.
Yeah, and that's where Hokori know that they can very easily make this trade. It's the issue that when this Beastmaster is picked up, you can't bring the entire menagerie down towards bottom. You always have to be running everyone over there. Again, TP rotations, it's just not something that Beastmaster does. Brax is going to try and encapsulate as much of this farm up here as he can, just do Beastmaster things, and then you're not going to see him ever TP reactively. It's just not something you can do on the hero. That's where Team really have to put the pressure on the enemy's towers, and we'll probably see that collapse in the mid lane. Maybe once we see the Boots of Travel finish up and Ryoya farming this Ancient stack here, which he very easily will be able to get, but that's where Team still need to be the aggressors. As soon as they start playing reactively versus the Hokori lineup, you're going to see them start to fall behind a lot.
Ryoya now finished off the Boots of Travel and going straight in for the BKB afterwards. So he knows what he's about. Get in, grab the lasso. Don't let anyone on Hokori stop him. Meanwhile, taking a look maybe at some of the Hokori heroes in terms of what they've got going. Analog, honestly, is not making fantastic progress. He's working towards the defusal, but he's got one Blade of Alacrity right now, and that's kind of it. Take a look at RDO. Crit Stick was finished off, and he is starting progress towards the Aghanim Scepter. So he's still playing this out relatively well, but in terms of the other heroes, as Brax finds the kill on Vitali, Gardic isn't level 6. They don't have a Blink Dagger on El Misho, so their ability to, well, maybe rush reinforcements into a scenario like that where Vitali gets sort of caught out by himself, it's just not there right now. They've got to let that go.
Yeah, and you didn't commit the lasso. You still have another playmaker available to you, and it's a little bit strange for that pick to actually go down. I know that Hokori need to really take a step back and wait for their item timings, but it does feel like Team are filling up that space right now, and Hokori really don't have that counterplay. And I think the reason that we're seeing Analog a lot poorer than we saw Mr. Jeans. Oh yeah.
So on to Gardic, they'll pull him in. The Mortimer Kisses are coming out as well, so Gardic does not have a lot of HP, but the Brain Sap is going to be used. It's just not enough. He is still going to be taken down. Flea gets the kill, and now Ryoya making a break for it. Still has to wait 20 seconds for his TP, but you see Hokori, they're not chasing him anymore. They want to go for the easier kill on the Flea. Analog pushes forward, and Flea honestly should go down. Maybe not. Sammy in with the Boundless, stunning him up. Flea, though, does still die, but now Sammy's got to fight underneath his own tier 1, and he likes that fight. Almisha will be taken down. Analog has to try and fall back, and while he will be able to make it across, Hokori do still have to sacrifice in order to get that kill, but at least Analog's in there, grabbing a little bit more for himself, getting maybe another stack of the permanent Agi, but you do need to be careful because Ryoya didn't actually leave. He's still hanging out, and while there's no lasso, could help contribute with something along the lines of the flame break, but it looks like everyone now is just backing away.
Yeah, and again, back to Analog, and of course, I like the play that they do make on the Flea. Unfortunately, it just wasn't fast enough, so Amisho does end up losing his life, but you don't see Analog going for the bottle that Mr. Jeans went for in his game, and I think that's a pretty big misplay because it means that you don't get to stay out on the map. You're buying a lot of clarities instead of having the more efficient purchase, where I think Mr. Jeans really struck an important note there on the hero, where if you have to go for this more farm-oriented playstyle, you're able to go for it seamlessly. I think Analog is definitely struggling to keep up with all the other cores in this game because of that decision or lack of a decision, and the other power he would have been able to gain, maybe finishing off that Orb of Corrosion, would have given him some more of these plays, but it does feel like they're struggling to make this Slark work a little bit more than D2 Hustlers did.
Yeah, it's not quite clicking to the same degree. Things are, well, not fantastic. He's below all the other cores in terms of the net worth right now, so there's a little bit of ground for Analog to make up. The good news, however, is that RDO is still doing a pretty spectacular job farming himself. He maintains his spot at the top of that net worth tab by about 1,000 gold compared to the Monkey King, and well, this would help if they could pick him off. Ryoya wants to look for it. Sammy's here as well. RDO has no idea. He's going to get hit up by the lasso. Almisho trying to save the day with the fissure, but that's just not going to matter. RDO just is taking too much damage, and they will take him down. So he was farming incredibly well up until the point where he gets ganked up there, and that is going to slow that progress a little bit. Still the top net worth hero, but that is a setback.
Yeah, and really, it's RDO thinking he has more backup than he does. He had the ward there scouting out the Monkey King, making the play onto him. He couldn't have known about the Bat Rider, but still, I think going for that baiting play is still a pretty big risk, and I understand that you know that there are still a lot of heroes showing top, but you give away a few too many kills like that, and you do remove a lot of your power, and that's where Sammy Boy, with, again, this Echo Saber timing that we see all of these safe lane monkeys going for, it just feels like he is going to be everywhere, constantly finding plays, and with the vision that Team have down, the punishes are going to be there, and look, they're eyeing up Vitali a little bit, but even if they don't kill Vitali here, they're taking away the jungle from their opponents, and Hokori right now are looking for a smoke that Team aren't going to give them any opportunities. They're just a little bit too safe on their own side of the map.
It's just not really coming together for them in the way that they want right now with the aggression. It does free up a little bit of space in this south side jungle at least, so Hokori will take advantage of that. As you see Analog sort of moving his way in, still trying to build up towards that defusal, so Any space that they can create there is going to look good for them, but BT, this is sounding a little bit like what we were talking about the last time we saw that Slark with the, the sort of struggles. Wow, I am losing my train of thought, but Sammy Boy in the previous scenario trying to sort of find farm for himself and really wasn't able to do so.
Yeah, and I think that's where his lineup really is enabling pretty hard. I also think that when you're playing Slark, you're always playing to take vision away from your opponents, and that's where these Hawks are really obnoxious. It's really hard to tell whether or not you're under vision by those observers, or if it is just simply a Hawk scouting you out. So I think Hokori are having a very difficult time figuring out where they actually want to play, and that's where I do like the smoke. Round 2 here. But Mike is already trying to spoil the play, and he's trying to get control of the hill.
And they scanned that out as well, so they did know that there were Hokori heroes sort of in the area, and Mike just going to charge head first. If he can break up that smoke play, that would be absolutely fantastic for him, and not only does he do that, but as you said, he gets control over that eye spot as well. He is going to get jumped in on now, and well, he's holding a point for the borrowed time just in case, but look at Elmisho blinking in. That's a very nice ult onto Sammy and Brax to get the Fiend's Grip down for a little while as well. That is going to allow them to push in. Brax and Sammy both taken down. Mike and Flea now have to try and desperately run. Ryoya, I mean, he's here, but he's not in a position to immediately reinitiate because there's no one there to help him. So they've just got to try and run. Mike gets taken down. Flea will look for the TP in the tree line, and Vitali, even if he did spot him, didn't have any means of canceling it. So at least Team pulled a couple of their heroes away, but those were big. The kills onto Sammy and Brax in particular, exactly what Hokori needed to be able to put together there.
Yeah, and that's where Team really need to be careful and aware of how easy it is for Hokori to slink up on them. That was very simply a smoke with Analog leading the charge there, gave the vision for the grip, for the initiation from Elmisho, and then Team not really respecting their opponents. You also have the perfect sleep from Gardic onto Mike there, forcing out the borrowed time even earlier, and they're trying to set up.
Brax. They kill the Hawk there, so that TP gets canceled, but Flea, with the cookie play, still gets his teammate away, and, well, Analog wasn't able to find the kill. Now Sammy Boy's arrived, and Elmisho, he's not getting away from this one either. They'll take him down, but Elmisho's sacrifice allows Analog to make his escape, but they were really hoping that they could find that pickoff onto Brax. It was looking like a good play initially, it's just the reinforcements arrived too quickly.
Yeah, and without Echo Slam, it really is kind of like, what are you doing over there, Hokori? I understand you're trying to get a little bit aggressive, but that's also where Flea, reading the game very nicely, already rushed a 4-staff, so that's something that Analog is going to have to worry about. Like, this play mid, it's just not going to work. He's going to force away, and he's completely fine.
So, Flea is ready for that situation. He knows if Analog's trying to push in, just keep him at arm's length, maintain that separation, and there's not a whole lot that the Slark is going to be able to directly do to you, but Analog was able to grab himself a DD rune, so whether they look for a kill or he looks for more farm, he is going to have that to his advantage. But right now, you see them wrapping their way towards mid. Can they find anyone, though? Analog is looking for a target. Sammy Boy's nearby, but he needs reinforcements to take this fight. He's not going to be able to do it himself. Elmisho, though, he's got 10 seconds for the Echo Slam, so they're going to have to wait, but while they wait, might as well go after that tier 1 tower.
Yeah, it's a very easy objective for them to take, one that they probably should have attempted a little bit earlier. Of course, Team filled the space. They're going to get aggressive on this tier 2 tower, and smoke with Echo again. It's still nighttime. Mike's going to start everything off, though. They see him.
Once again, able to step in front and just break up that initial smoke, but Analog gotta be so careful here. They're not actually going to go for him. Instead, they get the lasso onto Elmisho, getting the Echo out of the fight. Elmisho is not dead, though, because the Fiend's Grip locked Ryoya in place. So Hokori are going to be able to try and fall back and regroup. Vitali's pushing in, dishing out the damage, and now Analog and RDO, they want into the fight. Oh. There's that Echo, though, connecting onto 2. Ryoya and Brax both taken down. Technically, actually, it was 3, because Mike was in there. His borrowed time gets popped by it, but he will die as soon as it ends. And Elmisho, I mean, these are just game and fight saving plays for him with these Echoes. That's twice now he's been able to pull his team back from what was looking like a rough fight, and this one leads Hokori into the Roche pit. It's a massive shift in momentum.
Oh man, Gardic and Elmisho did such a good job playing off of each other there. The immediate grip to stop the lasso from going down, and then Gardic also surviving on a sliver of HP, and I think what really happened is Hokori got kited, or rather, Team got kited so far away from the observer that Mike actually placed there. He placed this ward thinking they were going to get kited up because, of course, their opponents were behind them, and Team were still on the tier 2 tower at the time, but instead, Hokori dragged the fight over to their side. They've got all of that beautiful nighttime vision from Slark, and it gets broken up completely. And then the patience from El Misho for being able to wait until the end of that BKB on Ryoya. He caught absolutely everyone again. It's just a huge swing now, and with this Aegis on Ardio, you're going to feel a lot more confident now playing on your opponent's side of the map. That was an incredibly important smoke to get this game back in their favor.
And Hokori go from trailing really throughout the entirety of the match at that point to suddenly having one of the largest leads of the game, about 3 to 4K ahead of their opponents. So they are feeling incredibly sort of strong right now. They have good farm on Ardio in particular, but even the other cores are now starting to sort of catch up to their counterparts. So they know what they're capable of. However, do still want to sort of point out the caveat, they do need El Misho and Gardic to be there and to have their ults available to really push into these fights. If they tried to do it without it, I'm not sure if they quite have that same degree of strength.
Yeah, I don't think so either, and I think that's why we see them now going towards top. They still need to be very close to each other, and with Echo up in 24, I'm really scared for Team. They need to work towards these BKBs. They already have the BKB finished up on Ryoya, of course, but it does feel like we need either some more initiation or a BKB on Sammy Boy. Otherwise, these fights are still going to feel really Hokori favored. Hokori have also just done a really good job of catching their opponents off guard and really using that Slark vision to its advantage. And here we go.
Smoked up, pushing their way across. They could find
saw
some
the crow.
big targets. Yeah, the crow's flying back from that direction. It means somebody had to be there, so they're going to go looking. Analog. If he spots Sammy, that would be big. They're going to make the jump in. The fissure does stun, but Sammy was already jumping away, and you can't really cancel that. So Sammy's able to get out. His teammates will TP away as well, and if you're Hokori, I mean, you like that aggression trying to go in. They just needed to be maybe a half second or so earlier with El Misho to actually catch out the Monkey King.
Yeah, and that's where when it comes to instant stuns in their lineup, it's just grip. You need to have the Bane, I think, either out in front or Analog there to try and just break up the engagement, but still, you were able to claim the top tier 2 tower without any engagement happening, so very easily they now get to go bottom. And the map does flip a little bit more in Team's favor because it does mean they get to go back top, play around where their vision previously was, and get this outpost immediately back. But that's also where I think Hokori are starting to roll your towers, as well as a Daedalus going to be completed by this gyrocopter pretty soon. And that's where your team fights are starting to get even more scary. And I'm very concerned with how they're actually going to deal with him. I think you need this BKB to be finished up on Sammy Boy before you look for that engagement. Unfortunately, I think Hokori are going to claim all your tier 2s before that actually ends up being finished.
Yeah, they just got the tier 2 bot, tier 2 mids under attack as Vitaly's pushing his way forward, so they should be able to sort of clean up those outer objectives, and then Team are looking at, either a smoke out play from themselves to try and break the hold, or some sort of high ground siege that they can maybe catch Hokori too far forward, see if they overextend. But for now, this tower should be going down. Both sides, they're ready to go. There we go. A little bit of confusion there, but we are back in, and Vitaly's going to start hacking away at the tower. We'll see if anybody actually comes over to help him. Ardio could really just swing in and sort of make quick work of this tier 2, and you're not going to be seeing Team really pushing anyone over to defend this. You do have the Axis coming in from Brax, but he's not going to come even close to actually being in a position where anyone could jump him. He is staying on that high ground in his base.
Yeah, I think the biggest timing now for Team, it's this Blink Dagger on Ryoya, it's the BKB on the Monkey King, and it's the Aegis expiring on Hokori's side. I don't think they're going to look for a fight as long as this gyrocopter has one, and unfortunately for Sammy, well,
that's a problem. Gardic hitting him up with that Fiend's Grip. BKB may not have really done him much good there even if he had it, but that is unfortunate. This is a scenario or a situation where it should be so safe for him. Look at the vision that they have still in this north side jungle, but at the end of the day, you can have all the vision in the world. Technically speaking, that is still your opponent's side of the map. Hokori just sort of collapse onto it, and you are sort of so worried about the efficiency trying to get the Monkey King farming far away that you don't have any backup. And now Brax, he gets caught out as well. Analog jumps in, pops that Shadow Dance, so there's no target to be roared. And they're going to be able to find that second kill. That's going to stagger the respawns a little bit here on the team side as well. So they are not in a great position right now. Ryoya is even sort of outside of the base trying to go for the split push down bot.
Yeah, and that's where the more single target oriented team lineup, it's the same story where we saw the mid start happen in that previous D2 Hustler series. It just feels like there is not that many targets right now for team to hit. I think really it comes back to Sammy just getting a few more items. He has exactly what he needs queued up. He needs the BKB and then he needs the Scotty. And then I think he wins this matchup versus the Gyrocopter. The problem is that 6,000 gold and gold that Hokori are not going to give you very easily. It's where they need to find something with this double blink dagger. Brax or Ryoya need to find a pick, and then they can start to play the game again. But until then, I think Hokori are doing a really good job. And back to nighttime, we're going to see them look for these big initiations. And there's a Hawk here as well that's not scouting out the smoke, and it could be a false sense of security. They got to be really careful leaving their base right now. I think team are terrified, though. They're just going to sit in their base.
They're not really willing to take the risk, but you see them, well, they're grouped up, and Mike is holding on to 3 smokes. No, they'll pop one, and they're going to try and make an excursion out of their base. The Aegis did time out. Can they find anything? Analog going to get not hit up at all. Sammy did try to push forward. Ryoya, though, is still going, and the blink is there, but you got to be careful. They go in for the lasso now, and Gartic's a little bit too far away, and now it makes sense why Vitalia was kind of standing there when he got jumped in on. So the damage has been done. He's already been lassoed. The question now, though, is can he get away? That lasso will be ending in just a little bit. He could pop the hood. He can Lotus himself maybe to try and get a little bit more defensive, and then hopefully, for his sake, maybe Timber Chain away. And if he can do so, you see Hokori Analog's coming in. Gartic's in position for a Fiend's Grip. They've got RDO TPing onto the tower, so this is going to be big, because if Vitaly dies here before anyone can reach him, I don't know if they want to go in to actually blow this fight up any further, especially considering if we can see their vision. Yeah, they don't see Brax. They don't know that he's sort of in this tree line, so if anybody pushes forward, Gartic in particular, try to go for the Fiend's Grip, the Roar could immediately shut that down.
Yeah, I honestly don't think they're going to turn back here. I think just let the Timbersaw die. It's unfortunate if the reason that he is dead is because he is just a unmoving target, you know? But it's whatever. I think cut and run, you're going to lose your mid tower pretty quickly after that. But that's also where RDO, who's already TPing in, they might just look for the engagement anyway. And that's where team could definitely spin this game in their favor or start to. As well as in addition to those blink daggers and the BKB on Sammy Boy, you also have double force staff on your supports. So Analog needs to be so cautious when he does decide to commit here, because if these heroes get out, it's very easy for them to find those turns, as well as Analog trying to get this shard available to him as soon as he can, which would be incredibly disruptive for the team side. But until then, it does feel like I think Vitaly's just going down.
Yeah, they may just have to sacrifice him, which, well, if they do choose to do that, RDO, he can cancel this TP, maybe just go back to farming in the jungle and work his way towards the Satanic that he has, well, he started, but still a couple thousand gold away from it. But that is going to be a big pickup. If he can grab that Satanic, we are seeing the Scotty queued up by Sammy, but that one's not going to be coming for a little while as well. So you may have a window here where your Gyro can get that before Sammy has the response, and a Satanic Gyrocopter in the middle of that fight is going to be unbelievably difficult for team to deal with.
Yeah, and that's the reason why they go for this Monkey King. If Monkey King can get the ring down, can get a Scotty, especially on top of the Gyrocopter, regardless of BKB, he's just going to die. There's nothing he can do about it. I think, unfortunately for Vitaly, if he was lagging, going to be a little bit sad to see, yeah, probably just going to die here. I mean, Gartic could walk up and try to hit him with the Nightmare. I'm actually very surprised. I see PC crashing. That's definitely annoying.
So
Yeah, that's funny. PC crashing in team
Ah.
fights. So stop team fights? Question mark.
There you go. Simple solution. Just don't fight and you won't crash. There you go.
Just let team farm. The rest of the map and all the items they want. Could be even. Could be even.
But yeah, they're trying to get Vitaly back in, make sure he's ready to go. Looks like they are going to give the go-ahead now, and we'll see if Vitaly has any sort of magic in him to get out of this situation. There's the Nightmare. That Timber Chain doesn't move him very far, but they do go in for the fight. Brax, though, he is going to get that roar off, so Gardic does get blown up, but, well, this really is not going the way that they want, because they still lost Vitaly as well. They get 1 kill onto Brax, so they do have that, but what else can they find? They're pushing it onto Mike. Borrow time had already been used, so he will be taken down. They cut the tree.
Cut the tree.
Sammy gets stunned. The Echo Slam comes out, so the Boundless can't be deployed. After he goes for it, it misses onto everything, and I think Elmisho, nope, he's not even going to die. He goes in with that Enchant Totem, gets the stun. Analog gets the kill, and Hokori, they just charge in. We were saying maybe they just leave Vitaly to his fate, but, well, why do that if you can sort of take that kind of team fight win? 4 dead, a buyback now from Flea, but I don't know if this is really going to be enough. If he can maybe clear out the creeps, although the tower already did that. So they don't really have too much to work with here, but the back door hasn't kicked in yet. They're going to try to bring it down as quickly as they can, and they do get it.
Yeah, Elmisho's playing with fire a little bit here, being as low as he is, but wow, that would have cut from Elmisho, getting the kill onto Sammy. But if he doesn't get that, I think everything goes a little bit more poorly for them. In addition to that, just everyone splitting up for that Boundless Strike. It's a small split, but it was enough. And oh, Ryoya, you don't want to get forced to use your BKB here.
He may not have a choice. He is taking too much damage. Mike, though, going to try to come in to help him, but he now gets stunned up by the Fissure, so he is going to get kind of trapped up as well. And Analog, he's still going. That's going to force the BKB. And Analog's not going to be able to get anything there. He will back off, but that's just a kind of casual play that really forces Ryoya to pop those resources before he can get home.
Yeah, and 21 stacks of Agi on Analog, but more importantly, looking to see if the Roche responds in 5 seconds here. I think if it does, it's too early for TEAM. They need to look for a few more of those items, as well as Ryoya waiting for his BKB to be back. Okay,
2 minutes.
Really fortunate for them. Long timer.
So that is exactly what TEAM were kind of hoping for. They still don't have access to that pit, but at least that's not going to really bite them immediately. So they can reset. Sammy continues to farm, needs to make progress towards that Scotty, so we shall see what he can do. But on the other side, Analog, he's going for a Scotty of his own. This Slark, I mean, we were talking about the fact that he was kind of starting slow, and he's still not quite up in that top 3 section, but he surpassed Brax and Ryoya by a pretty decent margin, and he's pretty much on par with the Monkey, and now they're going to jump in onto Mike. Borrow time immediately getting popped there, and he really can't go anywhere. The Fissure doesn't even stun him, it's just there as a roadblock, and Analog picks up the kill, grabs himself a little bit more in the way of Agi, and well, the loss of Mike, honestly, it hurts them a little bit more on the team side, because this is a lot of your kind of save. If other heroes get jumped in on and the Abba isn't available, then you might be stuck in a fight that you don't want. But his death timer is so low, he should be back up. But in the future, I'm not really sure that that's kind of a throwaway life for the Abaddon.
Oh, and look at that. Analog just gets to walk up here. He sees his opponents. When his opponents can't see him, he knows that the Bat Rider is looking for whoever wanted to come down here. They're just playing so well around Nighttime Slark. The advantage that Analog gains, of course, he's no Night Stalker, but he's spoiling a lot of these plays, and he's in the exact right place. And every single time he knows that he's underneath vision, he just calls it. It's so simple for him to actually be that monster Slark, where it's so difficult for TEAM to find those engagements. I think the one time we saw him actually go down, and we actually haven't seen him go down, I think maybe I'm thinking of Mr. Jeans, is when we have been seeing those Snapfire cookies and the Mortimer Kisses go down, but he's just been so elusive. He's so disruptive. At least it's daytime now. It's a little bit more of a shot for TEAM and Big Smoke, but you don't want the Timber.
This is not great. They're running into Vitaly and RDO. Elmisho, meanwhile, on the high ground. Sammy does go for that Wukong's command, though, and the Gyrocopter gets stunned up initially, but now there's going to be that Satanic. They just turn it around. Sammy and Mike are dead, and this is a disaster. Flea is running for his life. Analog is trying to chase after him. Should be able to get in with the pounce, and Flea will be taken down. That Fiend's Grip, as you said, it was there. Gardic is in, and if Gardic can make those plays, Elmisho was just sort of sitting on top there as well. Didn't go for the ult, but he was able to sort of throw out some disruptive stuns. It's just, you have to account for those supports if you're going to go in and your team. If you don't, things like that will happen and it all backfires.
Yep, and now this is easily going to be 2 lanes. The even team splitting up. RDO takes mid, everybody else takes top, and there's no rebuttal. They're trying to cut the mid wave, but having top wave already pushed in is just way too much space to work with. And even if they don't get the full megas here, which I definitely think they could push for, I think they're just going to reset and go to Roche, and that's where Team, it's going to be their last play of the game. If they can actually get this Aegis, if they can try and go for the steal, make their opponents scared. The big problem is if there's another Aegis on this gyrocopter, Ryoya can't go for that lasso play anymore. You can't go for dumping everything onto RDO and hoping that he dies, and that's going to be the big problem. If they don't get it here, I think more or less we're going to see that inevitable push in the final racks, and then I don't know if Team can hold.
Team, I mean, they have to sort of suspect what's going down here, but we're not really seeing that sense of urgency from them. They're just going to let it go. That's just too risky. I mean, if you take the fight and you lose the game, but now how do you take the fight in your base? 2 lives on the gyrocopter, and the Bane is holding the shard. I think he's just going to pass it off to a teammate, though.
Yeah, RDO even goes for the Lincolns. So now, even if you go into that next fight, I'm guessing he's going to slot the Lincoln Sphere in and then probably put it on someone else. But the problem is just that there still aren't that many targets on Hokori's side. You need to find Elmishu and Gardic instantly. The problem is just that because of Analog's hero and the way that it works, you just always know when your opponents see your supports. I think Analog is just a fantastic job of controlling that vision game. And here we go, the final push.
Clock stun to start. Lincoln Sphere will be popped. RDO continues the charge. The tier 3 is going down, and if your team, I don't really know. Oh, I don't really know if you want to hold against the Mega, so they go in. Look at those force stabs, though. They're getting them all the way back into the fountain. RDO, though, there's going to be the Satanic pop. They really did need to get him all the way in. They get him to the steps, but that's not enough. RDO heals up, falls back. Analog, meanwhile, hacks away, but once RDO starts falling back, he'll make his retreat as well. They get right back onto that tier 3 tower. Mortimer Kisses coming out from Flea, trying to do some damage here, and RDO is down to about half of his HP, but the Satanic's only 5 seconds away from being available again, and while all of that happened, the racks will be dropping. But there's Elmishu. Whoa, he jumps in, gets the Echo onto 3. They've got the Fiend Script onto Ryoya as well, and they're going to blow them both up. Flea and Ryoya taken down, Megas acquired, and that's it. GG
so
called. That's excellent execution from Hokori. You know, they were playing from behind at the start. We were talking about Analog maybe needing some time to catch back up, but once he hits that power spike, once RDO starts hitting those big items, they just steamroll their way through the second half of the match.
Yeah, and it's the reason why Gyrocopter is banned every single time. They let it through, and then Hokori just take it. It's so simple for them. It feels like it's a very obvious play, but Team thought that they could maybe handle it, and I definitely know that this Monkey King can handle the Gyrocopter. I think it was just the rest of Hokori really closing up that matchup, specifically those plays coming in from Analog and Elmishu during those night times, finding those incredible engagements, and then just pushing the issue. I think off of all of those plays, Hokori were able to obtain such a sizable lead, and it felt like Team were always maybe 1 or 2 big items out of grasp where they need them to fight, and Hokori weren't letting them get it. It just feels like Hokori really did a fantastic job of playing around their lineup, specifically playing around this Slark hero, just always taking away the vision, the eyes for Team, where when you have Bat Rider, Monkey King, Beastmaster, you should have the vision, you should have the knowledge, you should have that advantage in your playbook, but Analog spoils your play every single time. I think going forward into the tournament, teams are really going to need to be a lot more cautious picking up this Bat Rider and then not banning out the Slark. Second time in a row that I think the Slark really just closed the book on that Bat Rider.
So that matchup in particular is really one that the Slark likes, maybe not directly at the start. As we mentioned, Analog was sort of dealing with some stuff in the beginning there, but once he really gets some speed underneath him, there was no reason for him to really be afraid. Who could really lock him down? Sammy was not in that position. Ryoya and Brax a lot of the times couldn't even see the Slark to target him because of that Shadow Dance. So he's just in and out constantly. 8-0-12 in terms of the final stat line. Analog just sort of shows out, but really that is an incredible performance, and it's strong from all the cores. RDO and Vitali, good numbers as well, but if we're looking for MVPs here, Elmishu and Gardic, they have to be sort of 1A and 1B in terms of those candidates. If not for those plays with the fissures, with the echo slams, with the fiend's grips from Gardic, the cores never get the chance to really make those big plays to win those fights anyway.
Yeah, and it's just 1 or 2 times where maybe Ryoya outruns Mike, or Mike is slightly too disconnected from Ryoya, but it just feels like there was some kind of disconnect in those engagements. And again, it all starts with Analog walking up the high ground, giving all the vision in the world, and then unfortunately Team not having enough setup beforehand to actually find the punishment. If there was any instance in this game where you find the lasso onto Analog before the fight starts or before he gets that Dark Pact off, maybe we start seeing Team spin those engagements, but it just wasn't enough. I think Hokori were just way too clean. He was super clean in this game.
Mm-hmm. So they come out in game number 2, and they just absolutely kind of wipe the floor with their opponents. This time around, as we see from the graph, it wasn't really that same case. It was pretty even through the first 15 to 20 minutes, but once we hit that second half, once we hit that first timer, that's where Hokori just take control, and I mean, they looked very impressive. I mean, moving forward, teams have to be a little bit concerned. Of course, you do have that caveat of the game 1 loss, but Hokori appear now to be getting a lot more confident in what they want, especially when you give them some of these heroes, when you give them the Bane, the Gyro, the ones that they're so incredibly comfortable working with.
Yeah, I think teams are really going to need to look at this matchup specifically, and especially Hokori in the latter half here. They really just did a complete 180, especially game 2. They just wiped the floor with their opponents, and I think specifically going back to those drafts, just being really mindful of your opponents here, especially in the D2 Hustlers Hokori game coming up. It's going to be incredibly important what these players are able to find for themselves.
So, with that being said, Hokori take the series 2-1. They will advance to round 3 of the lower bracket. They're going to be playing up against D2 Hustlers tomorrow afternoon. We are, as far as I'm being told, still trying to determine whether or not we're going to have a post-series interview here. So we're going to give that a little bit, see if production can work their magic behind the scenes. So ET and I will be stepping away for just a little bit. We'll be back, though, either with the interview or with the news that we won't have one, in which case we'll be sort of closing things down then. So stick around, folks. We'll have an update for you in the next couple of minutes, one way or the other.